Hey, listen, a while ago I made a video about an Easter project where I shot inside of the church with my super wide and outside of the building with my Holga. And then I got interesting feedback from one of my viewers. Dank Spangle says, I like the Holga outside and the super wide inside. Imagine a super wide Holga. Oh yeah, massive distortion and vignetting. I'm going to stop imagining that. That's an interesting thought. What if Holga and super wide would have an offspring? And not just any offspring, but like a designer baby where we can pick and choose the characteristics, the genes, if you will, from whichever one we want. So the preferable characteristics of this offspring would be the best of both worlds. Let's do some gene manipulation here and see what we would end up with. But hey, before we do that, let's meet the parents. The mother, Hasselblad super wide. These are the kind of pictures she would take. And then let's meet the daddy, a plastic toy camera Holga. He would take these kind of pictures. So then, let's start to design the offspring. Let's start from the mommy first. From her, we want to get her beautiful eye. It's just an absolutely gorgeous lens. 38mm really makes the world a beautiful place and gives this massively beautiful perspective to life. That's what we want to get. And then we want to get an automatic film advance system and not those little red windows that are so 40s or 50s. We want a little bit more modern mechanics. So from the mother, the wide angle lens, film advance and possibility to do some adjustments. So what do we want from the daddy then? First of all, the offspring is gonna get his looks. Now, some might say that it is unfortunate, but the looks are not everything that matters. And now in this case, this is what we want the offspring look like. We also want the flexibility, durability, and adaptability. Like we want to be able to handle it properly and it can't be as fragile as the mother. It needs to be something that doesn't mind pushing around and doesn't mind being, handled a bit roughly. And from the daddy, from the man, we of course want to get the uncomplicated, no fuss attitude to life. We don't want to have a drama queen. We want to have a straight shooter. And then the cost. Somehow the lifestyle and the cost needs to be closer to the daddy than to the mother. I mean, she's really expensive to maintain. And now this may be a little bit controversial, but like our commenter Dank Spangle said, massive distortion and vignetting. So we like the wide angle lens, but we also like the vignetting. So somehow the characteristics of the final lens in our offspring needs to be a combination of sharpness and wide angle, but then the beautiful vignetting of the father Holga. And then from the both of these parents, what we want to get is, of course, that it needs to be a medium format camera. Unfortunately, I don't know if we can do anything with the viewfinder. These both parents have really bad viewfinder, so I think we need to live with that. Okay, so these are some of the characteristics we want from the parents. But like any child, this future child needs to have some characteristics of her own. So these both are really basic manual cameras. So we want the Offspring to be digital native. Something that was born into this age and that can be a little bit more advanced with digital technologies than either one of these old parents. So I think now we got an interesting idea for an Offspring. A wide-angle lens, but with a vignetting, uncomplicated, possibility to do some settings so that you are not always the same aperture and time, and then some characteristics of her own. And as you probably already guessed, such an Offspring exists. And here it is. It's a Lomo LCA 120. You don't believe me? Let's go through some of the features here. Yeah, it has a 38mm lens like her mother. It's an f4.5 like her mother. But it has a vignetting like daddy. 38mm is comparable to about 21mm in 35mm camera, so it really is a nice wide-angle lens. It also has the proper film advancing, so you don't need to look into any kind of red windows like what you need to do with the Holga. So these are the characteristics it got from the mother. Then from the father, yeah, they look a little bit alike, so. And they weight. This may be a little bit heavier, but not much. It can certainly take a lot of abuse. This seems really durable camera. This is very simple to use. And say, for example, multiple exposures that are just absolutely easy to do with your Holga. There's just a button here that you can select if you want to take multiple exposures. So much easier than with the super wide. Gorgeous lens. Look and feel and vignetting, and the cost of living. This is more expensive than Holga, but not as extreme as a super wide. You can get one of these, I guess, 300-400, maybe even cheaper nowadays, I don't know. And then the Lomo LCA 120 has also some characteristics of its own, not inherited from either one of these parents. First of all, we decided that it needs to be a digital native, so it has a totally automatic exposure and aperture. Now, some people don't like that, and I'm also torn, but it actually works pretty well. I show you some pictures later where I really tested it, and it works really nicely. And then you can sort of fool it a little bit. You can set the ASA settings, and you can put your finger in front of the light sensor. So you can do a lot of things with it to make it really almost a manual camera without losing the simplicity of the daddy. The automatic nature also has this issue that now we need batteries. And that's also something that I'm not really a fan of. But I mean, you can't get it all. If you want the simplicity, but you don't want to go to the brutal simplicity of the father, then you gotta do some compromises here. It has an inbuilt lens cover that I like a lot. So it doesn't use the batteries when it's closed, and it protects the lens, and then it's very easy to open and you are ready to shoot. So let's then take a look at the pictures that I've taken with this Offspring. When we are looking at those pictures, let me explain to you some of the tricks that I used with my LCA 120, mainly to test the automatic nature of this camera and then to circumvent the challenges of total automatic nature. With this picture I wanted to test the automatic exposure in darkness. And I was surprised how well the Lomo LCA 120 managed in dark conditions. It set the aperture and the time exactly spot on here, even though the exposure time was probably a couple of seconds, so that was a pleasant surprise. Now, if there is one situation where this Lomo shines, that is really the holiday pictures. The camera is easy to take with you, it is light, and it doesn't take a lot of time to shoot a picture. So this may be actually one of the ultimate holiday cameras. Hey, so this last picture is something that requires a little bit more explanations. The background of the image is very bright, and had I let my Lomo to do the light measurements on its own, it would have exposed my wife and my daughter absolutely too dark. You couldn't see their faces. To fix the automatic light measurement in these kind of conditions, you just need to think. So the faces of my ladies are in the shadow, so you need to somehow create same kind of shadow in front of the camera. And how I did that, the light sensor is here, so I just put my hand in front of the light sensor, not exactly on top of it, but a little bit further down. So then I fool the camera to measure the light from my hand. And the brightness of the back of my hand is approximately the same as it is on their faces. So you gotta fool it a bit. Okay, so what is then the final conclusion with this Offspring? Is the new generation better than the previous? Do I like the Offspring better than I like the mother or the father? No. Even if we tried to combine the best of these two worlds, the result is not better, but it's actually a little bit worse than these two. Let me explain. If I really want to get crystal sharp pictures and have all the control in the world and all the details, I would go with my super wide. It can take better pictures than my Lomo. Then if I really want to get moody, get really rough vignetting and really this grit, I would go with the Holga. Also, if I have all the money in the world to spend, which I don't, but I still put all my money into cameras, this would be my way to go. And if I want to get something dirt cheap and not worry about it, this is what I would get. Both of these, no worries about the batteries, and even more importantly, these two have their special, unique characteristics, and that's what I like about cameras. I like extremes. This is sort of a little bit in the gray middle, and even though I learned my tricks to circumvent the automatic nature of this camera, I still don't like the cameras that think for me. I want to be the one that thinks, not my camera.